Sherman and his team will provide you with excellent customer service and someone local you can count on.
This is how we do it. It's Friday night, and I feel alright. The party's here on the west side, so I reach for my 40 and I turn it up. Designated driver, take the keys to my truck. Hit the shop cause I'm faded. Hoodies in the streets, say money, yeah, we made it. It feels so good in my hood tonight.
It's The Drive on your local radio station. We are ESPN Blacksburg, and a good Monday afternoon to all of you. My name is Paul Van Wagner. B-Roy is in the other studio. He is taking your calls at 866-961-1430, 866-961-1430. Does he look super intense right now to you, Tim Thomas? No, he was reddening it up there pretty
They're making
hardcore.
a tequila watermelon keg
out
of the emptied out watermelon.
That sounds like something Scott Nason would do on a Saturday night at his house. Scott Nason also joining us this afternoon. Scott Nason, real quick, I just want to get your take on the 2018 I-500. I know a lot of our listeners are curious what happened there.
A bunch of snowmobiles went in circles for about 10 hours, Paul, and for the 43rd year in a row, I did not attend.
There you go. All right, Scott Nason with that beautiful analysis of
Thank you.
Yeah. Actually, that's the thing. Back home, where I'm from, where Scott's from, they have what is called the International 500. It is a 500-mile snowmobile race on a paperclip-shaped oval. And as Scott said, they run for about 10 hours straight. And you freeze, you drink, you freeze some more, you fall down a hill. It's a riveting day of excitement. And I also don't miss it.
Paul, it's like NASCAR, except twice as long, twice as cold, and twice as boring.
Yes, exactly. All of the things that everybody loves about NASCAR wound up into one really long day of freezing cold temperatures. Scott, a couple of 32-year-old soccer players tearing it up right now. Ronaldo out there just killing it. Neymar also tearing it up out there. In a sport that we normally think of traditionally as kind of much like tennis, a younger guy's kind of a sport. These two 32-year-old superstars are still having themselves one heck of a run.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, you look at Cristiano Ronaldo, last year having his best year, UEFA Champions League and La Liga winner. He also won FIFA Men's Player of the Year, Best Player in Europe, Club World Cup champion. The difference is for Ronaldo, at least this year, not really doing as well as right now. He only has 8 goals in 17 La Liga matches. This is his lowest output in almost a decade, and if you look at where Real Madrid is, they are still alive in the Champions League, but domestically in La Liga, they are struggling. They're currently 19 points behind Barcelona. And speaking of Barcelona, the club which Neymar used to play, he went over to PSG, that's Paris Saint-Germain, however you want to pronounce it, for a world record $263 million. Now think about these big contracts that you see in the NFL. And then look at that one, $263 million. And, well, the investment has paid off for PSG. They're top of the league in France. They're also still alive in the Champions League. And, oh, by the way, he scored 27 goals in 26 matches. So, really, those two players are doing well, but Neymar is the one that's doing a lot better this year.
No salary cap in soccer.
No, and there doesn't appear to be one. There's way too much money to be had, and as long as these big-name clubs shell it out, it makes it harder and harder for the minnows or the smaller clubs to have any chance in any of the leagues.
So let me ask you this. I mean, you got to pay a guy $263 million. You obviously got to put a lot of butts in the seats in these stadiums. Barcelona Stadium, for example, what are we talking about here? I mean, is it like Lane Stadium here in Blacksburg where it seats 65,000, or is it more like the Big House in Michigan where you're talking about like 112?
I think Barcelona's in between. I think they're Camp Nou, or I can't think of the name of the stadium. I think it's about 80,000. Most of the bigger name clubs in Europe are probably somewhere in the 40, 50, 60 range. I mean, you do have a few that are on the higher end, 80, 90,000. But for the most part, they're kind of like a baseball stadium. Almost, 50,000 is a pretty good average. Some a little less, some a little more.
You got to put a lot of butts in the seats and charge a lot for tickets to pay a $263 million salary for just one player.
You really do, and it really comes down to advertising, much like the NFL and TV contracts. I mean, they're off the charts as far as European soccer and these clubs. It just makes the NFL seem pretty small compared to some of these big-name clubs in Europe.
The Rolling Stones are celebrating. Liverpool knocked off, and Tottenham ended up tied 2-2. What are your thoughts on that match?
Two teams there that are kind of fighting it for Champions League spots, as Manchester City really still has a lock on what's going on in the Premier League. These are the two clubs that are kind of fighting it there. Harry Kane, there was a prop bet with the Super Bowl who would score more touchdowns in the second quarter, New England, or Harry Kane would get goals. Well, Harry Kane scored 2, so New England didn't get any in the second quarter. If you took that prop bet, which me being a soccer guy and liking the Super Bowl, I did. Thank you, Harry Kane.
That's Prince Harry, right? He's same guy?
Yes, indeed. I believe he's marrying somebody this year.
All right, excellent. In other matchups in La Liga, Barcelona ends up tied with Espanyol 1-1. I think I said that right. Again, not a whole lot of drama there, but it still means something for the standings in La Liga.
Yeah, it really does. Barcelona with that draw, they've set a club record for the longest unbeaten streak to start a league season at 22, and they currently have a 29-game unbeaten streak in La Liga, which is the longest among Europe's top 5 leagues and the club's longest since about 6 years ago. So Barcelona right now is basically running away with it in La Liga right now, 9 points ahead of Atletico Madrid. They've only lost one time, and they're still 9 points out of Atletico Madrid.
Wow.
So really it looks like those two teams are going to be the only ones that are going to have anything to say about the title. The favorite, or one of the favorites, Real Madrid, as I mentioned earlier, 19 points out. They've lost 4 times in league. That's a pretty big number for them.
Now, and that's not really acceptable either, is it?
No, it's not. But again, they get bailed out by being still alive in the Champions League action, which will start, I believe, next week again, which is all the top clubs in Europe in their own competition. So they still have something to play for. And so you would think if they win Champions League and they finish 3rd, 4th in La Liga, while it's not acceptable, it's a little more acceptable if they bring home a trophy.
I'm going to ask you and Tim Thomas both, more excited for the upcoming World Cup, which doesn't feature Team USA, or the upcoming Olympics, USA Hockey on the men's side? Tim, what are you more excited for?
Ooh. I don't know, because you have to factor in with the Olympic hockey, there's no NHL players this year.
I like that.
I
like that a lot.
I don't know. It's maybe the hockey, but the World Cup, I was talking with someone last night about this, and I said, yeah, the World Cup is just not as exciting. I mean, the last time the U.S. was in the World Cup, people in the U.S. didn't care about soccer.
No.
I wasn't alive the
Right.
last time the U.S. wasn't in the World Cup.
Well,
so
the last time they were in, people don't care about soccer.
Well, more people. Some people do.
Scott Nason, what are you more excited for, a USA-less World Cup or USA Hockey?
Well, I am a little more excited about USA Hockey because I do like the fact that the pro athletes aren't playing in this. I mean, will it be the Miracle on Ice recreated? Probably not, but I am excited a little more, I think, than if it was the NHL players participating. I do have one thing to say about the Olympics. I have to laugh at the whole Russia thing, as far as, they can't play for their country. I'm looking on the Olympic hockey schedule, and the women's hockey gets underway on the 11th. Canada takes on Olympic athlete from Russia. I mean, come on. Seriously? I mean, come on.
Now,
give me
don't
a
want to
break.
play the anthem. That's
here's the deal. If they really wanted to, kind of stick it to the Bolsheviks, what they should do is they should come out with the old CCCP jerseys on, or some USSR apparel, Scott. There you go, right there. Now, there's an idea for the Russian team.
Now you're talking the old Red Army from the 80s and early 90s. But to answer your question, Paul, I am a little more excited for the Olympics, but the World Cup always is one of my favorite sporting events. I don't care who's playing. Even though the U.S. isn't playing, I never have high expectations. There's other countries. There's always lots of drama, and it's the biggest sporting event in the world. Well, I'm going to say World Cup here coming up in June.
Well, I'm paging Treychek, and Fedorov and Nikolai Volkov. I feel like that's the line right there that the Russians need in order to be competitive in the Olympics in hockey this year. Real quick, Scott, what were your thoughts on the Super Bowl? Eagles beat the Patriots 41-33. I know you're a big Tom Brady fan, being a Michigan guy.
Well, I'm not a Michigan guy, but I am a Tom Brady fan, and you got to give it up to Nick Foles.
Yeah.
You got to give it up to Philadelphia. I mean, they played not to lose; they played to win. And you saw some of the play calls. Obviously, that call at the end of the half where Foles got a touchdown reception,
right,
which nobody had. I don't think there was a prop bet for that. If there was, that person's making millions of dollars. But it's a good story. A guy that almost gave up on football, that found his spot and did his time. And, he's got a Super Bowl ring, and he's got an MVP and a coach that coached high school football 9 years ago, and now he's coaching the Super Bowl champions. So it was a great game. If you love offense, it was your game. And
yeah.
It was just a fun night to watch football.
Tim and I were talking about this in the last segment. I want to get your take on this. If you're Nick Foles right now, like what do you do from here? There's a chance that Carson Wentz won't be ready for the start of the season, so you should potentially be the starter in Philadelphia. However, once Carson Wentz comes back at some point during the season, you're obviously going to get bumped because, well, he's Carson Wentz and you're not. But you could potentially be traded. You could test the free. Well, what do you do if you're Nick Foles right now?
Boy, what a situation Philadelphia finds themselves in to have two quarterbacks like this. And, if I'm Nick Foles, and I'm not because I have no athletic talent, but if I'm Nick Foles, I'm pretty happy where I'm at. Let the dice be rolled. And you know what? If Carson Wentz comes back and maybe you're sitting on the bench for a while, you're in a good situation on a good team, and you got a Super Bowl ring. So, maybe he's going to stand pat. Maybe he'll test the waters, but right now he's just enjoying being Nick Foles, as he should.
He gets to go to Disney World. Big announcement comes out of Detroit today. Matt Patricia officially named the head coach of your Detroit Lions, Scott Nason. I tweeted out earlier, I have reservations about this. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, my first thought is, does he know what he's getting himself into?
Probably not.
I think that's kind of the biggest thought of anything is, you're speaking of being in a good situation and testing out the waters. Well, Mr. Patricia is going into very hot, rough current and stormy seas in Detroit, a team that's won one playoff game in 60 years. I'm going to just kind of withhold judgment at this point. I mean, obviously we've seen him have success. Not last night, I might add, with the defense looking atrocious. But I'm going to have a wait and see. I mean, I like the guy. He's put in his time, and he's come from a winning program going over to the Lions club that has a New England GM and Bob Quinn. So we shall see. He's not in the worst situation as far as the players he has in a division that, maybe isn't the best, but he's going to the Detroit Lions, and that in itself could spell trouble for any head coach.
Yeah.
That ends up coming here because, well, you saw the Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator for Philadelphia who was here a long time ago, or not too long ago. So we shall wait and see on Mr. Patricia, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, you got, names like Jim Schwartz. I mean, when we Caldwell came from a winning background. I mean, when we as Lions fans, and actually Pete Morris earlier said it, paging Wayne Fontes, when Wayne Fontes is the greatest era in recent history in Detroit Lions football, that says a lot about where that team is going and where it's been, doesn't it?
The curse of Bobby Lane, quarterback in the last championship in 1957. You've heard of other curses around. Not many people talk about that one. Well, now, 61 years later, it's still pretty relevant in the Detroit football organization.
Scott, do you have a couple minutes? Can I ask you to stick around for one more segment? We have something fun that we want to do in our final segment of this hour. Can you hang out for me for 4 minutes and then come back with us for one more segment?
You pay me by the hour, Paul, so I'll charge you double.
Sounds good. Perfect. We will double what we're paying you. Scott's going to stick around, and when we come back, we will play a rousing game of Will Bryan Eat It? That is coming up next. You are listening to The Drive on your local radio station. We are ESPN Blacksburg.
We live for the sports you love. ESPN Blacksburg, 93.